I refused to marry, so my parents gave my sister everything, but she sold it to start a business. Now they expect me to repurchase the $250,000 heirloom. You won't believe what my parents just did. After years of them making my life a living hell because I refused to get married, they completely cut me out of the family inheritance.
And now?
Now, they expect me to magically come up with $250,000 to buy it all back. Can you even imagine the audacity? It all started about 4 months ago. My sister had just gotten engaged, and suddenly, my parents decided it was the perfect time to drop a bombshell. We were all at dinner, just like any other family evening, when they casually announced that my sister would be receiving the entire family heirloom collection as her wedding gift. Every single piece. I was stunned, truly. My brain just stopped. It took me a beat to even process what they were saying. And let me tell you, this wasn't some random collection of old trinkets. These were incredibly valuable, deeply sentimental pieces, passed down through generations. My mom always said they'd be split between me and my sister. Always. So, for them to just abruptly change their minds, without a word to me, it felt like a visceral betrayal. I sat there, trying to look composed, but inside, I was a raging storm of anger and hurt. It wasn't just unfair, it felt like a slap across the face. And the worst part? This wasn't new. Not by a long shot. My whole life, I felt like my sister was their golden child. She's the youngest, and she's always had everything handed to her. More attention, more help, and now, the heirlooms that were meant for both of us. This preferential treatment started the moment she was born, really. I remember my dad throwing this huge party for her, calling her their miraculous, wonderful baby.
Why?
Because, unlike me, she was born normal. See, I was born with a hearing disability. I've worn a hearing aid since I was little, but my parents never saw it as a part of who I am. No, to them, it was a dirty secret. They were ashamed, as if I wasn't the child they'd planned for. So, when my sister arrived without any defects, she became their favorite instantly. They constantly made me feel less than, telling me things like, "No noble man would marry a deaf girl like you," or that I shouldn't have high standards and should just settle down with anyone who would have me. As if my condition somehow made me unworthy of love, or marriage, or a fulfilling life. Their attitude pushed me. It pushed me to work hard, to leave my hometown, to forge my own path. I craved independence, space, freedom. And because I didn't follow their traditional blueprint, marry, settle down, become the woman they wanted me to be, they got even angrier. My sister, though, she stayed right by their side, living the life they'd always envisioned for her, and they adored her for it. They constantly badgered me, told me I had to marry, had to have grandkids, otherwise my life would be incomplete, and I'd regret it when I'm older and alone. My mother even told me, straight up, that as a woman, my role was to bring new life into the world, and by refusing, I wasn't just disappointing her, I was disobeying God. It wasn't just pressure, it was emotional blackmail, guilt, manipulation, all rolled into one. But I stood firm. I built my life on my terms. So, when my sister got engaged, they saw it as their chance to put me in my place. Handing her all the family treasures? That was their statement. And my sister? Oh, she was practically glowing. All smiles and thank yous, clearly thrilled. What really got me, though, what truly stung, was that she didn't even question it. Not once did she wonder why I wasn't getting anything. She didn't check on me, didn't care what that decision meant to me. When I tried to talk to my parents about how unfair it was, my father just shut me down. He said he and my mother thought my sister was the perfect person to carry on the family legacy. My mom chimed in, saying since I chose not to marry or have kids, it only made sense for my sister to get everything and pass it to her children. In their eyes, legacy equals offspring. And since I wasn't providing any, I had no say. I couldn't just sit there. I reminded them of my grandmother's wishes. She always said the heirlooms were for both of us. But my mother, with that infuriating finality she always uses, insisted she knew best. She said my sister was more deserving, and she didn't care what I thought. My father then accused me of being greedy for even asking for my share. He fully backed my mother, declaring their minds were made up. Their words, they just hurt. It wasn't just about the jewelry anymore. It was everything they'd ever said, every time they'd made me feel insignificant. Being the least loved child is one thing. Being reminded of it constantly, being made to feel invisible in my own family, that's another beast entirely. It felt like I would always be the one neglected, the one who could never live up to their impossible ideal. After that dinner, I'd had enough. I knew I needed to step back. So I started limiting contact. I stopped reaching out, and gradually, they reached out less and less. I just couldn't take their behavior anymore. Even when my sister invited me to her wedding, I politely declined. My peace of mind was more important than enduring more pain and disappointment. But of course, my sister wasn't happy about that. She tried to make it worse. Since I'd blocked her everywhere, she started sending me emails. Not to ask why I wasn't coming, oh no. Just to complain that I wouldn't be there for her in front of her husband's family. And then, the absolute gall, she actually suggested I still send a wedding gift. An air fryer and a Dyson Airwrap, no less. With your income, you can easily afford them, she wrote. I just stared at the screen. The sheer arrogance was mind-boggling. I replied, very directly. I told her she'd already gotten my portion of the inheritance, the family treasures. That she should be content with that. I didn't sugarcoat it. I told her asking for an air fryer and a Dyson on top of everything else was utterly unreasonable, and she had no right to ask for anything more from me. She was clearly upset by my email and kept sending more, but I just ignored them. I didn't react, didn't send a single thing. It's been 4 months since I cut off communication with them. I've been sticking to my decision, focusing on my own life, and actually finding a sense of serenity in the space I've created. Then, yesterday, they showed up at my door. Unannounced. This was huge, because they hadn't visited me once since I went no contact. I had no idea what to expect, but I knew it wouldn't be a casual visit. When I asked what was going on, my mother, with this grave expression, said it was a family emergency. The way she said it in that cruel tone made my heart pound. I panicked for a second, wondering if something terrible had happened to my sister, or if one of them was sick. They wouldn't just show up like that unless it was serious. I let them in, but I was on edge. The moment they sat down, I told them to get straight to the point. No niceties. I needed to know why they were there after all this time. My mother started, almost sheepishly, saying they'd missed me these past few months and felt terrible about how they'd treated me. I narrowed my eyes. This didn't sound like her at all. She went on, saying after all this time, she and my father realized they'd made a mistake giving my sister all the heirlooms. They now see how unfair their actions were, she mumbled, and how painful it must have been for me. I scoffed. I couldn't help it. I looked at them, completely suspicious. This was not them. My parents never apologize, let alone admit they're wrong. This abrupt, dramatic shift in their behavior felt too convenient, too out of character. I'd spent years feeling like I was second best, and now, suddenly, they're apologizing? It made no sense. What's really going on? I asked straight up. I knew there was more to this story. I wasn't going to fall for some superficial reconciliation if they were hiding something. My parents exchanged glances, hesitation clear in their eyes. After a long, agonizing pause, my father reluctantly spoke. He explained that they now believed I was the more deserving one, and that after everything, they wanted me to carry on the family legacy instead of my sister. But of course, there was a catch. Before I could receive anything, I had to complete one task. I was already on high alert, my skepticism through the roof. I humored them. What task? I asked, assuming they wanted some gesture of goodwill from me. But what they said next completely floored me. They told me that to get the heirlooms, I needed to buy them back from the exact place my sister had sold them. I just stared at them.
Shock.
My mouth went dry, my mind racing to process.
What?
My sister had sold the family heirlooms? I wasn't sure if this was some sick joke, or if I was hallucinating. What are you talking about? I managed to choke out. That's when my mother finally admitted the truth. My sister, without their knowledge, had sold the entire collection. She used the thousands of dollars from the sale to start her own business. I was utterly stunned. All those years of sentimental value gone just so she could make a quick buck. I couldn't wrap my mind around it. How could she? And how could my parents have let this happen? Turns out, my sister's business venture had failed miserably. She and her husband were now deep in debt. And guess what? She ran straight back to our parents, pleading for financial help. That's when my parents finally pressured her into confessing what she'd done. My mother broke down, crying, begging me to save the jewelry. She kept saying how much she regretted not listening to Grandma and how she should have split the heirlooms between us from the beginning. Because I didn't, she sobbed. Everything is destroyed. The heirlooms are lost. I scoffed. How can I save them if they've already been sold? I asked. My father then leaned forward. You can still get the entire family heirloom back for $250,000. He explained that after some investigating, they'd found the items being resold online. That's why they needed my help. My jaw dropped. $250,000. I almost didn't believe my ears. I pointed out how utterly ridiculous this was. How on earth am I supposed to pull $250,000 out of thin air? I demanded. Even if I had that kind of money, I would never pay that much for something that should have been mine in the first place. I looked them dead in the eye. This is entirely your fault. I told them. You are the ones who gave the heirlooms to my sister, despite knowing they should have been divided equally. And now, because she turned around and sold everything, you expect me to fix it. It felt like they were trying to shift all the responsibility onto me, as if I should clean up their mess. But I wasn't going to fix their mistake. I wasn't going to pay $250,000 because they mismanaged their own family heirlooms. It was not my responsibility to right their wrongs. My mother immediately started arguing. You can easily help us, she cried. You're a childless, single woman with plenty of money. She complained I was just making excuses, as if she was entitled to my money. She didn't care why I wasn't willing to just hand over an obscene amount of cash to fix a problem that wasn't mine to fix. Then my dad jumped in. He said he understood I was frustrated, but I needed to put my grudge aside and buy back the heirlooms. They're your family legacy too, he insisted. They shouldn't be in the hands of a stranger. I stayed calm. I am not taking on the responsibility of fixing something that should never have been a problem, I said, my voice steady. If you truly want them back, you should be asking my sister to buy them back, not me. I reminded them that if this was so important, they should have thought carefully before giving everything to my irresponsible sister. The decision you made led directly to this mess, I continued. My sister has never held a job or earned a cent, and you gave her thousands of dollars worth of jewelry, expecting her to take care of it? Of course she sold it. Then I asked them, the raw truth hanging in the air. How is it my responsibility to save our family legacy when you didn't even trust me with it in the first place? I reminded them that they were the ones who found my sister more deserving, who called me greedy. This was the hard truth, and I wasn't going to sugarcoat it. I had every right to be upset, and they couldn't just expect me to shoulder this burden now that everything had fallen apart. It wasn't right. My mother quickly shot back that they had tried to pressure my sister to buy them back, but she and her husband were completely broke. Her business failed, he lost his job. They were in debt, relying on my parents for financial support. My father argued that my sister was clearly in no position to help, and since I was financially better off, it was now up to me to save the family heirlooms. His words, they felt like a slimy manipulation. They expected me to be the savior just because they failed to make the right decision months ago. I scoffed. I couldn't help it. After everything, this is why they showed up at my door. Not to properly apologize, not to reconnect, but to ask for money so they could fix their mistake. I looked them straight in the eye and told them, no. Firm and clear. If this is why you came all this way, expecting me to bail you out after gifting my sister everything, then you can turn around and leave disappointed. I had absolutely no intention of buying back those heirlooms. Why should I? They weren't even given to me in the first place. They made their choice. They decided my sister deserved it more. Now, they were just facing the consequences of their decision. At that point, my mother completely broke down, crying, saying I was cruel and unhelpful. She sobbed that I was the only one who could help them now, as if I was supposed to feel guilty. Then my dad joined in, claiming they had put their egos aside to come ask for help. And I was just turning them away out of spite. Eventually, I managed to get them to leave. I held the door open. My mother sobbed and pleaded. My dad hurled a few choice words at me before storming out, but I didn't waver. Not one bit. Wow, the support from all of you after I first shared this, it means so much. A lot of you were curious about how the heirlooms could be worth $250,000. It's not just one item. It's a whole collection of jewelry and some rare cultural pieces, passed down for generations. My grandmother always intended for them to stay in the family. My mom actually had them appraised years ago, and even then, their value was incredibly high due to their history and craftsmanship. And no, I don't just have $250,000 lying around. I have a good career, I earn well, but that kind of money would completely drain my savings, my emergency funds. It would wreck me financially. So, technically, maybe I could pull it off, but it would be reckless and frankly ridiculous to even consider spending that much on something that should have been rightfully mine to begin with. I've stayed no contact with my sister since the wedding. After I declined, she bombarded me with those demanding emails. I ignored every single one. She knew exactly what she was doing when she took those heirlooms, and she absolutely knew what she was doing when she sold them. We haven't spoken, and I have no intention of reaching out. Many of you suggested I go to a lawyer, but unfortunately, there's nothing I can legally do. My grandmother never left a formal will specifying how the heirlooms should be divided. She always said my sister and I should inherit them equally, openly talking about it when we were younger, assuming my mom would honor her wishes. But legally, without an official document, no will, no trust, it was entirely up to my mother how she handled them. So, when she gave everything to my sister, I had no legal grounds to contest it. It was her decision, and I had to just live with it. You know, it's funny, my parents showing up at my house felt like a nightmare, but then my sister decided to make a surprise appearance this week. After how entitled and manipulative my parents were, I learned my lesson. When she knocked, I flat out refused to let her in. She stood there, yelling through the door, complaining about how upset our parents were, how they were blaming her now, treating her like garbage for a single mistake. Then she started convincing me that if I just paid the money and bought the heirlooms back, everything would be fine. I told her the exact same thing I told our parents. This isn't my problem. I wasn't the one who made a selfish decision. I wasn't the one who sold off decades of family history, and I am not about to fix something that never should have happened in the first place. She kept saying how unfair it was that everyone was turning against her, that no one ever helped her. Honestly, I almost laughed. She's had everything handed to her entire life, and she's still complaining. She eventually left when she realized I wasn't going to listen. And now, for the latest twist, my parents have decided to get a second mortgage on their house. Can you believe it? They are willing to go into debt to repurchase the very heirlooms my sister sold. Apparently, the thought of a stranger owning those items is so terrifying that they'd rather risk their home than face the consequences of their own actions. It's absolutely perplexing. They act like the world will end if those items aren't returned. To make matters worse, my father has sent me 3 emails, each one practically dripping with disappointment. He keeps saying how disappointed he is that I refused to help and how they had no choice but to take this action to protect our family legacy. As if any of this is my fault. And to top it all off, he's actually started suggesting that there's still time for me to make things right by sending them money every month to help cover their loan payments. The audacity. They want me to help pay off the loan they took out to buy back the heirlooms they gave away and my sister sold. Please, someone, make it make sense. Their entitlement is almost beyond comprehension at this point. My parents never cared about how unfairly they treated me. But now that their golden child messed up and they're facing the consequences, I'm supposed to bail them out. Just to clarify, because a few people were worried, I am doing incredibly well in my life, despite my family's relentless attempts to manipulate and emotionally blackmail me. My parents might think my life is incomplete because I haven't married or had children, but honestly, I've never felt more in control. I worked hard to get to where I am. I owe no one anything, especially not those who made it abundantly clear that I was never their priority, unless they needed something from me. So no, I am absolutely not going to waste my hard-earned money so that they can fix the mess they made. That's entirely on them. What would you have done in my place? Have you ever dealt with such mind-boggling entitlement from family? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I really want to hear your thoughts.